Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for visiting the YouTube channel for bestbiblecommentaries.com. I recently completed a series called How to Build a Biblical Resources Library. And as I was putting together those videos, I came across a few different resources where I couldn't quite figure out where I wanted to place them in a video. So I just kind of set them aside and thought, I'll do a bonus video at the end and just talk about all of these resources at once. So if you haven't seen the video series yet, I'll put links in the description box down below so you can easily access those. I would recommend that you would watch those first and then come back to this video for some kind of bonus content. Before I get into it, I invite you to subscribe to the channel if you're interested in seeing videos on biblical studies resources. Please consider clicking the thumbs up button on my videos. That helps push my videos out to people on YouTube that maybe could benefit from them. And feel free to leave comments or ask questions down below. So I have 7 resources I'm going to show you. A commentary, there's some Greek, there's a ministry book, there's a classic, there's a dictionary, and then there's this bonus book. This is actually a new release. I got this book, I think, a week or two ago, and here's the thing. Here's the twist at the end of the video. This book I am predicting will become a staple for my library as I use it. So I'm excited to show this to you at the end of the video, but I'm going to make you wait because, you know, that's what you do. Sometimes you make people wait. Everybody gets to work on their patience in this video. All right. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the commentary on the New Testament use of the Old Testament, editors Beale and Carson. I did a full video on this not long ago, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it, but it is one of the staples for my library, and that's kind of the theme of this particular video, is some staples in my library that I hadn't shown you in previous videos to this point. So this is a great book for understanding the unity of Scripture. So the New Testament uses the Old Testament all the time. I think the only New Testament book that is covered in this commentary that doesn't have any information in it, I think, is Philemon, if I remember correctly. But otherwise, there are books of the New Testament, like the Gospels, Paul's letters, Hebrews, Revelation. They quote, sorry, the book is pretty big here, trying to get it in the screen. They quote and allude to the Old Testament so often, it has just been really beneficial to have the thoughts and explanations from top biblical scholars on how, for example, the book of Galatians uses the Old Testament. So again, I have a full video on this, so I'm not going to go into detail on it again, but it's just really an outstanding resource. It's an award-winning resource that's only been out maybe 5 years now or so, but I really like it, and it's become a staple for me. The next one, actually, someone made a comment on Harold Wilmington's resources, and so I thought I would show you one that I use pretty often, and that's the Outline Bible, subtitled The Most Comprehensive Outline of the Bible Available by Harold Wilmington, who passed away a couple years ago. He spent a long time teaching at Liberty University. And so he's off. You might have heard of some of his other resources: Wilmington's Guide to the Bible, Wilmington's Book of Lists, Wilmington's Complete Guide to Bible Knowledge, Wilmington's Handbook, and yeah, okay. So he served as president of Liberty Bible Institute and vice president of Liberty University. All right. So sometimes in commentaries and other academic works, the writers give the readers outlines that are so sophisticated that they're almost beyond practical use. That's not uncommon to find, especially in mid-level and technical commentaries. It's you get an idea of the pattern of thought or the argument being made. But for those in preaching and teaching ministry, sometimes it's not something that we can easily transfer to a lecture or to a sermon or in a Bible study. But this Outline Bible, you absolutely can. I loved using this Outline Bible when I was preaching because the outlines are so helpful to those in ministry. So if you're a Sunday school teacher or a small group leader, if you have any responsibility in presenting passages of Scripture or a chapter of Scripture to a group, a congregation, a class, whatever, this book can really help you. So, for example, I just turned to Proverbs chapter 4, and Wilmington gives the title, Wisdom Results in Self-Discipline. And number 1 is David's counsel to Solomon. And then it's A, acquire wisdom. B, embrace wisdom. C, love and cherish wisdom. And then the next section, verses 10 through 27, is Solomon's counsel to Rehoboam. A, let wisdom guard your feet. B, let wisdom guard your heart. C, let wisdom guard your tongue. D, let wisdom guard your eyes. That is preachable. That is teachable. If you're in youth ministry, that is gold. It is just so nice to have some, memorable outlines, and that just kind of set the stage for application. So this whole Bible, or this whole, it's not a Bible in that all the words of Scripture are printed in it. It's just, it outlines the whole Bible from Genesis to Revelation. It's just a great resource. Bonus. Here's another bonus. This video is full of bonuses. Can you believe it? This is free online. I have another video where I talk about this book, and in that video I show you, I have a link to where you can get this free online, as well as Harold Wilmington's other resources. So after, I believe that, if I remember right, after he passed away, his family and the university decided to make his resources free online. So you can get his lectures, the outline Bible, all sorts of material. I'll put a link to that video in the description box down below, so you can watch it, and I give the explanation for how you can get all of those materials for free. You can view them online, and if I remember correctly, you can even download them as PDFs. So great resource for your consideration, especially for those in ministry. All right, now I'm going to show you a book that, as I have not heard many people talk about this book at all, online or anywhere, but it's one of the staples for my library, and my personal library, and it has been for 25 years. It is called The New Linguistic and Exegetical Key to the Greek New Testament by Cleon Rogers Jr. and Cleon Rogers III. It's a Zondervan publication, and it's a resource that helps readers with Greek. And I would say you do not need to know New Testament Greek in order to benefit from this book. You need to know it to maximize this book, but you don't need it to benefit from the book. So let me give you an example. So this is arranged from Matthew to Revelation, just the 27 books of the New Testament. So here I turn to Acts 16, and then you just look up the verse, whatever verse you're looking for. So here's Acts 16:25. First it provides the Greek phrase, and then it gives you the Strong's numbers if you want to look up the definitions to the Greek words. And then it gives a translation about midnight. And then it gives some information that elaborates on the meaning of the Greek word. One of the abiding hallmarks of life in prison was darkness. Nightfall robbed the prisoner of what little darkness there was, and at midnight there was total darkness. Since business was concluded generally by noon, Paul and Silas had been beaten in the morning and held in the inner prison in stocks, unable to move their legs, for about 12 hours. And then it gives the next Greek word, and it parses it for the reader as well. And parsing, if you're not familiar with it, let's see, a definition off the top of my head for parsing is when a person identifies the different attributes of a Greek word. So, like if it's singular or plural, what voice is it in? Is it a noun or an adjective, and so forth? That's when you identify those parts of a Greek word, you're parsing the word. So it provides the parsing for you for this word, and then again the Strong's number and the meaning, to pray. And then again it gives an explanation. The joyful hymns were for praise, not release. And their stark contrast to the distress, complaint, and or anxious petition, which might be expected, was a witness to those in prison. And then it goes to the next Greek word. So to me, it has always been like 4 resources in one. Now, there used to be parsing guides. Actually, you can still get them. A guide, like a book that lists every Greek word in the New Testament in order, and it parses it for you. And it used to be the case that those were really helpful when you were learning Greek, when students are learning Greek in seminary. Parsing guides are still really helpful. You can just get them for free online, so I don't think those books just aren't as popular anymore. But this gives you parsing, it gives you the Strong's number, it gives you the simple definition, and it gives you some elaboration, a little bit of commentary on the words. And so this, and there's not a theological argument that the authors are making. It's not that kind of resource. It's just it's more general information, and there's no application suggestions or anything like that. But it's just a great starting point when I exegete the scripture for preaching and teaching. And so I've always loved this resource, and it's one of those that I just have never heard many people talk about. So, Linguistic and Exegetical Key to the Greek New Testament is what that's called. All right, the next one is a dictionary from IVP, because IVP loves dictionaries, and I love IVP dictionaries as well. It's mutual. And so this is called the New Dictionary of Christian Ethics and Pastoral Theology. So I've showed you different dictionaries, showed you Bible dictionaries, theological dictionaries. I can't remember what other dictionaries. I'm going to show you another dictionary here in a second. But this is Dictionary of Christian Ethics and Pastoral Theology, and it gets into different topics than the biblical studies and theological dictionaries that I have showed you. So, for example, the entry I was just looking at before I started this video was on fear. Now, you're going to get one set of information if you look up fear in a biblical studies dictionary or a theological dictionary, but this is more geared toward pastoral ministry. Another entry was depression. Here's one on dreams. So that's interesting. Here's one on feminism, legalism, leisure. This one's the New Age movement, but the information. Here's one on pain and suffering. But the information is geared more for application, for practical takeaways, for counseling someone, trying to help someone, give them wisdom, give someone in need some wisdom on a particular topic. So it's a good resource to have on the shelf. I had to really hunt for this one. This one might be out of print. I had to really hunt for it, and I paid a little bit more than I thought I was going to. But still, it's a good resource for my shelf, and it gives me some valuable summaries on topics that my theological dictionaries and biblical studies dictionaries don't. I just turned to fear right here. So it gives about a page, 2 columns worth of information on fear and bad fear and good fear, as in fear of the Lord. And then it gives a bibliography. So similar to some other dictionaries I showed you, but content's a little bit different. All right, this book I like to have on my shelf, and because I think it's something of an achievement. I actually don't use it that often, but I do like having it on my shelf, and that's Young's Analytical Concordance. Now, why is this important? It's kind of a first of its kind. First of all, I just love the story of this concordance. You can see that my copy is really beat up. I think I got this. Someone gave this to me. I think I got it for free. I said beat up. The better description is someone has really loved this concordance, and that's fantastic because someone has used it to study scripture. So Young's Analytical Concordance was published in 1879, and it uses the King James Version of the Bible, and it's kind of an achievement. I'm not sure if that's too strong of a word to use, but I really do kind of think, it's huge, isn't it? I really do kind of think consider it something of an achievement. It was published in 1879, and concordances today, they're put together with computers, which great. It's great that we have that kind of speed and efficiency for putting together a biblical studies resource. 1879, they didn't have the benefit of that. It took over 40 years to put together this concordance. It took 3 years just to do the typesetting. That's an incredible achievement. Over 40 years to put this book together so that people would have it to benefit their study of Scripture. Now, it is not an exhaustive concordance. So kind of the history is that this concordance was published in 1879, and then Strong's exhaustive concordance was published 15 years later. I think it's 1894, if I remember correctly. And so this is what you call a complete concordance. Strong's is what you call an exhaustive concordance. A complete concordance is that it lists all the major words of Scripture, but it doesn't include articles and prepositions. Like it doesn't include the word the, or a, or an, or to, to, those kind of words. An exhaustive concordance will include those words. So that's the difference between what's usually called a complete concordance and an exhaustive concordance. This is a complete concordance. So here's the word God, for example. This is the first concordance that included not just English words, but also Greek or Hebrew words as well, and provided information on those. So I believe that there is a concordance earlier than this one that was just English, if I remember correctly. But this is the first one that was English with Greek and Hebrew as well. So it's just an incredible accomplishment at a time before there were computers, of someone working, a team, a group working over 4 decades to develop a tool that people could have that will help them study Scripture better. I just love that story. So, all right, a couple other resources. This one, I know I have non-Americans watching my channel, and welcome, I love you all. This one is a Dictionary of Christianity in America. One of the benefits of having this resource on my shelf is because it gives me a lot of information about denominations, whereas and so that's how I think it could benefit even non-Americans. I had to hunt for this one a little bit too. I'm not sure if this one's out of print or not, but I remember I didn't get it too long ago, and I did have to hunt a little bit for it. But there's entries on biographies, there's entries on denominations, and so for those who enjoy church history and knowing about what's the difference between, Anglicanism and Assemblies of God or something like that, this kind of dictionary can be really helpful. So, and I do use it. 2,400 articles, 1,500 biographies, 400 contributors, thousands of cross-references. It's an IVP dictionary because IVP loves their dictionaries. All right, now, this is the book that I am predicting will become a staple to my library, and it reminds me of this commentary on the New Testament use of the Old Testament. But now, drum roll. Terrible drum roll. Drum roll. A book-by-book guide. Oh, wait. Oh, I read the subtitle first. Old Testament use of Old Testament. A book-by-book guide. Old Testament use of Old Testament. So this is a 2020 release from Zondervan Academic. And it is a similar format and layout to the commentary on the New Testament use of the Old Testament. This is basically the Old Testament use of the Old Testament. So let's look at an example here. So here is the book of Genesis, and we have hermeneutical profile of the use of Genesis context and other Genesis contexts. So the information in this particular section might be different than the other books. Since Genesis is the first one written, and this book is about how the Old Testament uses other parts of the Old Testament. Let's look at a different example. So here is Isaiah. It's a combination of commentary and describing the unity that Isaiah has, in this case, with other Old Testament books. So now, of course, there's information about what other Old Testament books does Isaiah draw from. So if you see this, tilt that down a little bit. So if you see this gray box here, what this says is the use of Scripture in Isaiah. So we have a reference here to Deuteronomy, Micah, Exodus, Genesis, 2 Kings, Judges, and so on. So it's kind of giving us the layout of where Isaiah is using other Old Testament books. In this particular case, Isaiah is one of the longer books, 66 chapters, right? So there's, looks like about 2.5 pages of references of where Isaiah is using other Old Testament scripture as he writes his book. And then there is a passage by passage, looks like there's an introduction, and then there's a passage by passage explanation of the use. So it's not commentating on all of Isaiah. It's first, so here's this says use of Scripture, if you can't see that, use of Scripture. So in Isaiah 1:2, he's quoting or alluding to Deuteronomy 32:1. So there's explanation and commentary on that. In Isaiah 1, chapter 10, the references to Deuteronomy 29:23. So there's a paragraph description of that. And then it jumps to Isaiah 2, verses 1 through 5, because that's the next time there's a quote or an allusion to another writing in the Old Testament. So that's how it goes, on and on like that. So this entire book is, you just flip to the book that you want. Here's Amos, and you can look up how Amos is using other Old Testament scripture. So there's the gray box that kind of gives the summary, and then you get the explanation in the next few sections. So it's a little bit more advanced. It's quite a deep drill down into the information, into biblical studies, information. I would call it a mid-level resource, but maybe a little bit beyond that. Not because Hebrew is necessary. You don't need to know Hebrew to use this, but because it's such a deep drill down. But I just think that anytime I would teach a passage or preach a passage out of the Old Testament, I just am beginning to think this is going to be a very valuable resource. So that's my initial takeaway, and why I'm predicting that it's going to become a staple for me. And yeah, it came out in 2021. So a new release, and I'm pretty excited for it. So maybe I'll talk about it more in a future video, but for right now, I'm just including it at the end of this one. So, all right, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.